Hi, it's Michael Vandenham, and on today's training tips, I'm going to talk about shouldering and running with your bike. Shouldering is one of the most uniquely cyclocross skills. So today we're going to talk about the 2 ways to pick up your bike, the 3 ways to carry your bike, and the 2 ways to put it down. Let's start with picking up your bike. The first of the 2 ways is to pick it up by the top tube and curl it almost like you're doing an arm curl and lift it up and just set it onto your shoulder. Your pickup point on the bike should be right around where you pick it up to suitcase the bike or lift it over barriers, probably somewhere just ahead of the nose of the saddle. If you're wondering where this is, a good test is to pick your bike up and see where it sits and balances, just like this. Once you find that point, like I said, pick it up and place it on your shoulder. That's option number 1. Option number 2 is to grab it by the down tube, right around where the water bottle bolts are. It's the same motion. You're going to pick it up there, lift it, and set it right onto your shoulder. Now, there are a few advantages and disadvantages to each of these options. If you pick it up by the down tube, that can be a faster motion, especially if you're going up a hill. You can see here that the bike sort of comes up to me and I flick it onto my shoulder really quickly and efficiently. However, if it's a muddy race, the down tube of your bike is often covered in mud. So every time you do that, you're getting a handful of mud, which is going to make it harder to steer and drive your bike later on. That's why in Europe, you'll see a lot of riders picking it up by the top tube, even though that can be a slightly slower motion. Additionally, if you're doing flat running, like you often are in some of those European races, picking up by the top tube means that you don't have to reach as far down to get your bike. So now that you have your bike on your shoulder, finding a balance point there as well is quite important. The bike should be resting not on your shoulder bone, but rather on the muscly part, so it's not too uncomfortable. Again, I like to put my bike up there to find that point. Should be nice and balanced, and you should be able to extend your arms to either side and let the bike hang like this. No problems. Once you have the bike here, again, you have a few different options for how you're going to hold the bike. Option number 1 is to thread your arm through under the down tube and grab onto the handlebars just like this. So again, twisting the bars, threading the arm through, grabbing onto the handlebars. Option number 2 is to go around the front of the bike, pull the bike back, and again, grab onto the handlebars. The final option is to go over the top of the stem and grab the bike like this. If you go around the front of the bike like this, that can be really challenging for smaller riders. However, it does open your body up to run a little bit more smoothly. If you go down through the bike like this, again, you're going to get yourself covered in mud, although thankfully this time it's going to be your arm, not your hand, so it will not affect your driving as much. This is a really secure method that works for most riders, but the bike is a little bit closer to you, so it might make doing extended runs more challenging. Finally, if neither of these options work for you, and I stress this is probably a last resort option, you can go up and over the stem. The problem with this is it's just not quite as secure. The bike is a little bit more prone to slipping off of your shoulder, but for some smaller riders especially, those other 2 options just don't work for them, or they have a bike that makes it hard to do one of those motions. This can work in a pinch and is still proper form. Now, getting your bike off your shoulder, basically reverse of how you got it on there. If you picked it up by the top tube, there's a good chance you're going to hook your thumb under and just set the bike down like that. If you picked it up by the down tube, same thing, reverse, and put the bike on the ground. Simple as that. Finally, one last note about putting the bike on the ground. You want to be sure not to slam it into the ground, not to drop it on the ground, but rather set it firmly into the ground. This is going to keep your bike from bouncing around, make sure that you don't do something like drop a chain, and it means that you can have the cleanest remount possible. Since I've raced in Europe quite a bit, I've decided that I like to pick my bike up by the top tube, like so. I like to wrap my arm under the down tube and grab it like this. I find reaching around the top tube for myself is a little bit uncomfortable. And then when it's time to take my bike off my shoulder, hook my thumb on under and put it onto the ground just like that. That's all for training tips today. Thanks for joining me as I talked about shouldering, and I'll see you next time.